So I'm a reluctant consultant, and that's an important piece of information because um, I came here because a counselor stopped me in the hallway and said, "How come no one is getting kicked out of your classroom? A, and B, how come you're always smiling and seem so relaxed?" And then she asked me, "Could you please teach whatever you're doing in that classroom to other teachers?" And what I was doing was mindfulness and restorative circles. I said, "Yes, if you don't pay me, because I'm not an expert." And I did that course. I taught those 7 teachers for 6 weeks in the summer. And that next year, they were smiling and they had about a half the number of referrals, behavior referrals. And that's what, like, oh, I guess I need to share this because he had a huge impact on 7 teachers. So that's why I'm here, is because it actually impacts teachers' lives. All right. So this whole training and the work that we do is held in a framework called balancing the process. And what that means is the first thing we do whenever we enter a space with children, with colleagues, even in the hallway, we're going to slow down. So the restorative balance in the process is as much about creating the conditions for learning as it is about supporting the social and emotional wellness of both teacher and students. So this balance in the process, and what I'm going to go through and what you'll experience today, is the way that a restorative circle is set up. This is basically the schedule for a restorative circle, but we use it as a framework for how we operate with kids and with colleagues. So first we slow down, we take time to check in and connect. Check in can be very simple, from a thumbs up and a thumbs down, to writing down a number, to saying what kind of landscape you feel like today, or ice cream flavor, or it doesn't need to be deep. We're talking about just getting a litmus of how people are doing, getting all voices heard. This is the quadrant in which, where in your morning, first thing, or your afternoon session, are you making sure every student is seen and heard somehow? Being seen can just be a thumbs up. Then you're giving an opportunity to build relationship. That's tell me about a time when. This is often in a big group, a pair share. Seems like 3 minutes of pair share shouldn't be a big deal for people, but it's huge. I've always noticed this: when people do a quick pair share, then they're smiling, then they're relaxed, and they're ready to learn. So before you're giving directions, before you're getting into the meat of your activity, you do those 2 things, then your directions will be heard more easily. They'll be more engaged. You won't have to repeat your directions 20 times. And their brains, as the social neuroscientists are all yelling about in their research and telling us, feeling connected increases our neuroplasticity. It's part of how we're wired, is that once we feel connected and secure, we can actually begin to learn, because it makes sense. We can let go of our vigilance, our fears, and just open to learning. Higher order thinking can happen. And then at the end, we reflect, set an intention, or make an agreement. So what did we learn today? How did that feel? How did we do today even? And then show appreciation, leaving aspirationally. Like, hey, we had a rough activity today. There was a lot of challenges, but I also saw some growth because this was a tough challenge. So you're always leaving, like, recognizing and valid what's valid. Okay. And we're going to go through this today ourselves. So first, we're going to slow down and connect. We'll build relationship. We'll focus on a topic, which is obviously the SEL. And then we'll set some intentions on what we want to change in our practice. All right. The first thing we're going to do is slow down and check in. And at the heart of this approach is the practice of pausing to get centered and let go of what we think we know, and invite in compassionate curiosity. And it's called 2 feet, 1 breath. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And I'm going to tell you, it's a game changer. This approach, I don't have it. I don't think I have it. Sorry, missing a slide here. Let me make sure. There it is. It's a different order. This approach brings out our best self to every interaction we have and every task we attempt to accomplish. It decreases mistakes, misunderstandings, and even lost phones. And I would say lost keys. So for me, this approach is a game changer. I developed it when I worked with extremely challenging youth at a therapeutic program. And when I approached a door to meet a new student, I had in my brain a huge inches of feet of file information about the teachers he's assaulted, DCF, custody, drug use, whatever, diagnoses, all sorts of information. And I had to stop. I developed a technique where I'd stop at the door on the inhale. So I found my 2 feet, stop what you're doing, bring awareness to your 2 feet on the ground. So bring that energy down. And then step 2, take 1 breath. And on the inhale, I would bring a hand to my heart, check in kindly with what I'm feeling, and bring appreciation to myself, because this job, is hard. So you breathe in some kindness, checking in to make sure that you're not really like off the rails yourself before you walk in. And on the exhale, letting go of what you think you know. And it seems kind of a little bit counterintuitive. You're supposed to be a professional. You're supposed to know everything about the student or this group of students. But really, in that space of openness, you can let go of thinking you have to know it all. So I also let go of thinking I should know something special, that I should be anything. That I'm just going to bring this student my complete presence, and I'm going to have faith in that. And wouldn't you know it, it is the most powerful technique. Years later, I Googled it just by chance because I wanted to make sure by making a poster about it, I wasn't infringing on trademarks, and a doctor had developed it for himself. So he did a little study in his practice where he put a poster on every examination room and had his doctors do 2 feet, 1 breath before they went in. And then they surveyed the patients, and their satisfaction with the doctors was skyrocketed. And so it was really powerful. And here's, I really recommend, I'm going to give you the slideshow, and clicking on this in your links, a poster, and pasting it up and remembering. If you do this 50 times a day, I try to do it when I'm teaching in every doorway. So every doorway, every transition, 2 feet, 1 breath, and then move forward. All right, I'm going to go backwards because I got lost there. All right. After pausing, the second sense of connectedness is the number 1 strongest protective factor against many adverse behaviors, and it prepares the brain to learn. So beyond the neuroplasticity, a student feeling connected is the strongest protective factor against them doing violence, against them missing school, against everything. It's amazing. It was a 36,000 student study done by the Center for Disease Control. So taking that time to connect is not touchy-feely. It is not hippie. It is based in neuroscience and this huge study by the Center for Disease Control. And this is from one of the educators that I taught about the pause, this 2 feet, 1 breath, 2 feet, 1 breath. The pause gave me a moment to disengage from what was happening in the classroom and to really see more clearly. Was I frustrated with this child because of what was happening at the moment, or because it triggered an old helpless feeling? Was a bias at play? Taking a moment to observe and ask myself these types of questions impacted my reactions. It allowed more room for compassion for the children and for myself. This one, it makes me tear up, because this woman, Betsy, was going to quit teaching. She was so burnt out. And the work that she did with the pause and mindfulness really changed her teaching life and restorative work. So understand that if, again, all you do from this training is incorporate this pause into your day, my theory that pausing actually inspires, creates a restorative approach, which is a curious approach. It's true. If you pause, you're going to engage with your best self versus that kind of knee-jerk, punitive, because we grew up in it. Our knee-jerk default way of doing things is to say, what are you doing? So I can't emphasize this enough. This is it. And this is a poem for you before we try the 2 feet, 1 breath. So attend the breath. Let rhythm slow and settle. Filling, emptying. Draw the outside in and then release. Simplicity and ease. Nothing to do but breathe, relax, and feel the free movement of air and life force. Watch the play of energy and sensation. Allow everything to be without the need to change or fix or make it different. In this moment, you can simply listen. In this breath, you have no goal but being. You are already complete. This, just this, is what it means to be whole. And I read this at the risk of kind of sounding kind of new age myself or hippie, or I hope I'm not insulting anybody by just using those generalizations that kind of come with being a mindfulness person. But I hated mindfulness. I thought people do mind meditation are dumb. Like when I was young, I was a EMT, as a first responder, mountain rescue, mountain climber. People who deserve my respect did stuff. They fixed things. They made things move forward. But what I learned in my lifetime is that this approach of slowing down and letting go of the need to fix really changes everyone's around you. So this fall, or right now this summer, that's going to be a big pressure on you to fix things, to make things different, to have the answers. And I beg you to let go and notice that. And like, no, we're all winging it. We are all winging it. And your best remedy is to pause and then look around to see who can you engage and try to find answers together. And that's the restorative approach, is the collaborative one. All right, so we're gonna get on to connecting ourselves. And pardon me while I find that slide. I don't think this is the right link. Okay, so in your agenda, I'll go back there in a second. There we go. So go to your agenda, and well, before you click on that link, I want you to think about how you felt. Name 3 emotions you felt in the last 48 hours. All right. So you can keep looking at this list, but what are 3 emotions that you have felt in this last 48 hours? When you've thought of those, you click on this link and you're going to vote. If you can't figure out that technology, or it doesn't work for you, or you don't have the connection, just write those words in the chat. All right. So even if you can't do the Mentimeter technology, make sure you get your voice in, and Megan will add those to the work. Mm-hmm. All right. So here are the words, just like they're in your packet. So I'm going to switch from this screen, and if you don't have your words, keep reflecting. But now once you click on that link in your agenda, I'm going to go back to it one more time. And I'll even put it in the chat for us.
I just popped it in there for you.
You did? Great. There we go. We're going to see how everyone's been doing. Mm-hmm. There's some. So Megan, is that a task that's going okay? Entering those words that come up in the chat?
Yeah, I'm putting them in right now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. So as these go in, understand that if someone asks you after this training, are you attending to the students' social, emotional needs? You can say, yes, absolutely I am. If all you do is come up with 5 ways for students to tell you how they feel. So that might be cutting out landscape photos from a calendar and spreading them out wide so students can walk around and choose one that makes them feel the way they feel, reflects the way they feel. It might be this, it might be technology, it might be thumbs. But if all you do is that, it's one of the most powerful ways to acknowledge and help students manage their emotions is if they can name them. Not only name them, but that see, what do we see here? We see that we are in a community where all a huge range of emotions have existed. Oh, dog. Because what adds to a student's anxiety is that maybe they feel terrified, they may feel anxious, and they feel alone in that. That's why, along with check-ins, a variety of kinds, so visual, creative, and in the resources, we'll give you I have a list of different types. You want to make it possible for them often to do it anonymously, right? If someone's feeling very depressed, how likely would this person, a couple people, our depressed word over here on the left is a bit larger. So that means more than one person has voted depressed. We get to feel like we are in a community that feels like we do. And suddenly we feel better. So I just want you to reflect on what it feels like to look at this and the broad range of feelings. So just to review, come up with choose, I should say, because I'm going to give you a list of different types of check-ins. Choose different check-ins and make sure some are anonymous, like this one. And third, there's no need for them to say why or to process it, or you're not a therapist, right? You're not talking about processing these emotions, you're just talking about naming them. That's beautiful.
Tammy, a lot of programs are still virtual.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that this Menti that you're using, the Mentimeter, is a free option that people could use if they wanted.
Yeah.
To try this with their students.
Yeah, it's free. You can have up to 4 slides. That's all you need for a check-in. So I'm going to say we're done because 36 plus the numbers that came into the chat, I think we're done. So uncertain. Surprise, surprise, right? We are in uncertain times and we are in good company. Your mantra should be, everyone is winging it. No one knows what the heck they're doing. Doesn't matter how high up you are or how many degrees you have. No one is trained in this. So now the other piece, so now we've kind of not acknowledged what's in the room. Let's shift to name something that brings you joy or makes you smile. And I suggest something ordinary, like, because these times it might just be an ordinary thing. My dog, absolutely not ordinary, of course. A dog is extraordinary. But let's just see what else is in the room here. Yeah, you sure have a lot of hiking out there. My plants are still alive. Is it dry out there? Hot? Who is your favorite actor? Sitting on the ground. Oh, I love it. Nature. My neighbors visiting, the older gentleman walking every day. Riding my motorcycle, watching my chickens. A hug for my sons. Lulu. Smelling flowers. Okay, so what does this do? This kind of activity, very simple. What are we feeling now? Reading these things? We're kind of connecting. I'm connecting to our shared humanity. So many things I feel. So you might vote differently than I do, maybe, who knows? But what brings us joy is the same. So many things are the same. So we, in a restorative, socially, emotionally supportive environment, we create activities where people in the room can focus on what they share. So we had shared feelings. Now we're having shared joys. And as we go in person, that becomes more important because the political piece will come down through parents to their children. We'll have refusals around masks. We'll have all sorts of potential power struggles that we need to have held, kind of anchored in a shared humanity. Yes, beautiful. All right. Thank you for that. It's really nice. Simple. Yeah, it makes me realize simple things are the big thing. Yeah. Being outdoors, I feel like I can breathe again. Night walks. Thanks for the chat entries. It's so true. Yes, it's also a gratitude exercise, which we really need to make. And this makes it so this question, the way you phrase it, just a smile means if you ask students, what are you grateful for? It's a little heavier than what's the last thing that made you smile, right? So take the pressure off of students by making it anonymous and making it very concrete. Bringing my cats on walks is so cool. All right. Thank you for those. Beautiful. And if you're doing online work like we've been, take the pause. So the pause is true in virtual learning even more. Pause to go back to the screen of people. Tell people to go look at everyone's faces if they're shown. And make sure you as a presenter or a teacher connect with human faces. If you start to feel energy drain, go back to the screen and see the faces smiling, okay? Otherwise, you're just going to be exhausted from it. You might already be. But I feel energized after my time online. So because I do this, really looking at people. Great. And if you're doing online work, this stuff matters. I wrote an article about all the different tips you can use to make more engaging. If you're more engaging and more human here on your screen, people are more likely to respond to you. So warm light, get your face in close, make it high enough. Don't know backlighting. So there's tips I can put my article I read in your resource folder as well, or the link to it. Okay, very, very important stuff, even though it seems simple. Cool. So the hour and a half is super challenging for this trainer, but we're gonna do the best we can. Okay, wait, sorry. I wasn't paying attention to which screen. Pay attention. There we go. Okie dokie. So now we've slowed down, we've connected, and we're going to bring up another framework for that balance in the process, which is Bruce Perry's neurosequential model of therapy. Sounds super fancy, but for most of you, this will sound like complete, total common sense, which it is. And this is another takeaway that I'd like you to cement in your brains. We are all gonna, if we go back in person, when we do, we're all going to be dysregulated because we've all been excluded. We've all been disconnected. It's all new and stressful with masks or 6 feet. So this is more important than ever. If a student is dysregulated, that means all sorts of things, right? They're throwing things, they're yelling, they're checked out, their head is on the desk, they're asleep. Any of you know about trauma informed, it can look both like super aggressive and loud, or it can look totally checked out and sleepy. Both of those are dysregulation. They're outside of their window of tolerance, so to speak. We all live within a window of tolerance, meaning during our day we get super stressed, and when we get calm, But we don't go out of that window most of the time because we have good skills, most of us. We don't freak out at the driver next to us. Sometimes we do. But a lot of children don't have the skills to stay in the window of tolerance, and they need your help. So first thing first, teach them some self-regulation tools. But as you approach a student who's dysregulated, you have to regulate them first. Do not start with, how are you doing? What do you need? What's going on? Questions are just not going to have an impact. You got to regulate first and then show relationship. Hey, what's my name? Look at my face. Do I look upset? Look at my face. I care about you. You're having a hard time. I know you just hit Mary. We're going to deal with that right now. Look at my face. You've known me for 6 months, whatever it is. But that looking at the face is, I'm not an enemy. I'm not a threat. Because when you dysregulate, everything becomes a threat. All right. So you relate and then you can reason. Once they're regulated, and that usually when they look at you, they start to look at you in your eyes. When they look at you in your eyes, then you can start asking those questions, right? What do you need to get back on track? And this model overlays this balance in the process. So the checking in and all that, that's regulation. Then we relate and then we reason, right? So 2 frameworks to keep in your mind. And the trauma one is going to be super, super important as we go back. Building a relationship part. Sharing stories of our learning, our experience creates the pathways for learning. Cognition rides alongside emotion. Thinking and feeling aren't inextricable. So this is a great message for people who get who do circles, who get accused of being touchy-feely. There's a ton of research out there that says you cannot separate thinking from feeling. They ride side by side. That's why anybody who studied education, to learn best, you have to create a relationship with what you're learning and bring up stories about your relationship. So tell me a time when, share a story about, will help you learn, because it engages the emotions, your emotional self, into the thinking. So that's really important to remember as you're telling directions or teaching content. Great. So we're going to build some relationship now. We're going to get into breakout rooms. And here are the guidelines. So only the person who is talking can talk until they pass to another person. So this is not a discussion. This is a time to just be seen and heard. Speak from your own experience instead of responding to others. So as it's your turn, don't take your whole turn just saying, oh, I went there too. And I love that also. Drop what they said and just speak from your own experience based on the prompt. And then really important in this work, you can always pass and go later when you are more ready, or not share at all. Every room needs someone who just listens deeply. So when you work with your children in this state of dysregulation, pressure to share, pressure to do anything is going to just only elevate them. You need to say, okay, right now you're not ready. Maybe later. Nothing said in these circles can be shared outside of the circle. So there's nothing deep going to be asked of you, but I like to say even the trivial stuff, just make that commitment. And then set a timer to ensure equal voice. So someone have a timer and someone, and then just hold it up to the screen when it goes off so everyone knows it's time to move on. So for I think I'll make it about 8 minutes, take turns sharing the following. Say your name, where you live, what school you work at, and your role, and what has been an unexpected gift of these challenging times, and what has been the hardest thing. So you're just introducing yourself, and then you're just saying, of this pandemic, of this civil unrest, without getting political, it's just like, what has been the hardest thing for you personally? And then name one after school or program, school ritual or experience you look forward going back to the most. All right, so this is designed to give you, wow, I'm sorry, Megan. Mm-hmm. Oh, here it is. Yeah, breakout room protocol, the second one here. So in your packet, you want to have it open to the second page so that you don't have to rack your brain to figure it out. All right. So have that open, and let me get back to the room here. The reason for going out in breakout rooms is just to experience what it means to build relationship and to feel that in connection with each other. All right. So how many people? Let's do some math with me. Easy. How many people we're going to have? 3, I think.
13 rooms.
Listen to you. Nice. 13 rooms. So what you're going to find is you'll just get an invitation soon. Okay. And you're just going to say yes and go to that room, and you'll pop into a room with just 3 people. All right. And if you need help, it's very clear how to get help. Welcome back. I hope you had a good time in your breakout room. So good to see faces. There's quite a few more smiles when we come back from breakout rooms. So these are unusual times. So some of you may be like, I don't have time to slow down with my kids and then connect and build relationship. Well, it's got to happen. So I've been really actually demanding it of the districts I work with the administrators, because they're some of the hardest to get to slow down because they have so much to do. And I just say, at the beginning of every meeting, I want to do 2 feet, 1 breath, and 1 quick connection question, 1 word, something. It takes 5 minutes, and it's amazing what a difference it makes. So while I'm slowing it all down to teach you, understand that it's very, very simple to get everyone in the room seen and heard. So elbow partners, pair shares is all you need to do for when you're in person, just so a student can start to work those muscles of connection again that are going to be very lazy. All right. So right now we're going to get back to some self-regulation tools, because we're in the middle of our presentation, probably a little past middle. And I'd like to get us up a little bit. This is the time in our balance in the process where we're exploring the topics. And one of the most important pieces is just giving your kids and yourself some superpowers. The superpower is the ability to change how you feel from super sleepy and checked out, or from super hyper. So self-regulation tools, you should have a toolbox of at least 5. Teach them to your students and have them each choose one that they can use. And it empowers them. So a lot of teachers have a reset space here. And in that reset space, there might be posters or little cards that show reminders of these 5 different techniques. And the students say, so when they're dysregulated, instead of like, out of the room, you're out of control, hey, Billy, go to the reset space. Or Mary says, this other student says, Mary, Billy, let's go to the reset space together, because you look out of control, or you look like you're struggling. So we're going to have Cheryl from Milton, Vermont, help us out learning a few of them. So you can do this sitting. I'm going to get up because I'm in my chair too much. And we're going to listen to her tell us 5 different types of breathing. I'd like you to do them along with us. So if you would, please stand up and get your 2 feet on the floor. This is what you're going to be teaching your students. If you don't feel like it, no shame.
Okay.
Nice ear.
I'm going to tell you about 5 breathing techniques, and I want you to do it with me. And I want you to teach your families. Okay, here's the first one. Sunshine breath. Hands together, breathe in through your nose. All right, number 2, snake breath. Put your hands together, make your snake. Breathe in through your nose. All right, number 3, we're going to do an ocean breath. Your hands are going to be the waves. Breathe in through your nose. Nice job. All right, number 4 is the gorilla breath. Ready? You're going to be just like the gorilla. Breathe in through your nose. That one's fun. All right, last one is the library breath. So we're going to be really quiet. Breathe in through your nose. And that's it. Have fun. Bye.
All right. So Cheryl teaches pre-K. You try to get a bunch of teenagers or middle schoolers, 5th grade on, to do that. You're probably going to get some resistance. So, hold on a sec. So you want to also learn from self-regulation tools that are sneaky, right? So one is to grab your seat underneath you with your, you can put me on speaker view if you want to just see what I'm doing. Oh, Megan's, for some reason, the speaker. I don't know why that is. Oh, well. Not on speaker view. And you push down on your chair. So you just straighten your arms. So you can teach a sneaky self-regulation by just, it's like a full body tense, but you're in the seat and you just push down and you breathe. All right. Of course, there's fidget toys, but you do want to think of self-regulation tools and Google it. And I can send some to you that are sneaky for the 5th graders and up. All right. Excellent.
Annie, can you add that video to the resource list? I just checked to see if it was there. It doesn't look like it's there.
Oh, awesome. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
And I did just put in, I'll share my screen again. Okay. So this is your training links. They're in the resource folder. So at the top of your agenda is a link to the resource folder. In your resource folder is training links. And I just added this one. It's check-in list. So I talked about not just, hey, how you doing, right? You want to create different creative ways. And here's a list of them you can start with, okay? And you wanted me, so I remember self-reg video. Great. I will put that in there right afterwards. Okay. Excellent job. All right, so this is kind of blurry, but I couldn't find any others. But another one is create those 5 or 6 techniques, and this is a spinner. So you make a spinner and let kids make it fun. Like you look like you're having a rough time. Once you go over to the spinner and choose a technique to try, and it makes it kind of fun for students. So this is a fidget toy, listen to music, color or draw, beanbag chair, deep breaths, think happy thoughts, take a break, and glitter jar. Glitter jar is shaking a jar full of glitter and water and just letting it settle. Kids like that. Right, so these are all online, very easy to find. And this represents a space with a couple self-regulation tools used in schools. One is creating a space where kids can hide but not be unsafely alone, right? You don't want to have kids isolated, but they can, it's intentional hiding, which kids need. And then noise canceling earphones. The noise of after being in self-isolation for a really long time, it's going to be really hard for some students to navigate all those noises. There's a pen that is not breakable, and then fidget toys. And then that red thing is like a sensory thing to put on their feet. But yeah, just start Googling away and get a toolbox. This will be your most important investment in your work with kids this year. All right. Another framework that I want you to have available is the social emotional learning signature practices. This document, and Megan, it's in the links, yes? Can you look for it just to make sure? Yeah. This guy, Richie Davidson from SEL Castle organization, he created this playbook. I'm just going to scroll just to give you an eye on how nicely designed it is and easy to absorb. Basically, it's asking you to begin with a welcome inclusion activity. So I just wanted to show you how kind of pretty it was and easy to navigate. It's short, with lots of links with ideas. You could basically plan your first session with that document. But what we have with this is welcoming inclusion activities. So everyone in the beginning is seen and heard through some kind of activity. Then engaging practices that are focused on relationship, and then an optimistic closure. I really like this for after school programs because it breaks down every session into some really important pieces. So that's a great guide if you're feeling nervous about how to do this work.
Annie, I just wanted to make a note. Some people are asking about the training materials. And so this link that's being shared in the chat box will be available after the training. And I'll also email it out. And I'm not sure if the one that you just shared is in there or not, but we'll make sure everything gets in there.
All right. I'm looking at this.
Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. So indeed, in your resource folder, which is linked at the top here of your agenda, if you go to that, you'll see my Drive folder, which contains everything we're talking about. So down here, it says Castle SEL 3 signature practices. That's what we just did. Okay. So if something's missing, please get in touch with me, but everything should be in there. Thank you, Megan. And thanks for that question. All right. So what I'd like in the chat right now is a lot of this, you are veterans. You folks know what you're doing. And nothing worse than a consultant who pretends like they're saying something new, right? But what I'd like to know is what concrete things, what ideas, how does this look in your program? So what rituals do you have? What welcoming rituals, online and in person? What relationship building techniques do you use? Let's just pour it all out there in the chat. What do you already do? What's not news to you? So I'm going to give about 3 minutes for this of silence while people really reflect on their program, what they've done in the past, and how it fits into this work.
You want me to read them off as they come in?
I just had a training where someone said, don't talk while I'm trying to write. So I'm going to leave it for silence for now. We still have another minute and a half, so please keep thinking. What are the things you do? And I'm just sharing that slide again in case you want to think about the different pieces of this while you think of your own ideas. If you've written something, I invite you to read other people's entries And I'm going to open up just for a minute or two right now. Done writing. It's a big group, but is there anyone who is willing to add their voice to this by just saying something you've read on the chat that you like the idea that you like?
I like the calm down kits.
Yeah.
I like the show and tell online. That's interesting and really using, like, trying to find something that works with what we're going through right now.
Excellent. And that also lends itself to one of the tips for leading and teaching online is how can you humanize yourself? What can you bring into your space that is personal? I don't have anything right now except for my cool sunglasses. Humor's good too. But trauma-informed practices ask that you humanize, because when we get stressed, our DNA, the way we're wired, and this happens in our brain, they watch it. We go to fight or flight, and everyone looks like an enemy. So the quicker you humanize yourself, the less stressed they'll feel, which is great. What else? What else do you like that you see? Your sister brought her chickens to her online classroom. I love it. All right. Yeah, calm down, Vince. New message. Virtual snack with our kids for a few weeks. Excellent. Super, like, no idea is too simple when it comes to heart connection. They seem simple, but they're very powerful. Great. Thank you for doing that. And I'm going to save this chat and it will be put into the resource folder so you can access these ideas that other people have said. Great. Okay, we're going to move on because we're getting towards the end of our time. And I want to give you a couple more tools before we end this time. Thanks for all your sharing. It's really, one of the restorative principles is all the answers we need are in the room. We have to just create the space. And it is really true. All right. I'm blown by this because I guess what I want to say about it is take the idea of SEL out of the curriculum box, because it's often considered like, oh, did you learn the SEL curriculum? And bring it into the box of it's how we are, it's how we operate. So what that means specifically and concretely is you are teaching social emotional learning if you check in with your students and then are transparent as a social emotional human being. So you are not going to be doing well every day. I am feeling a lot of stress today because I can feel my jaw muscles really tight. So what I used to tell my students, I was very transparent with them to help them. And I said, you guys, I start to rub my, I get really, right before I lose it, I usually get a really tight jaw. So then like a couple of days later, I was rubbing my jaw and one of the students was like, Mrs. O, are you going to lose it? Everyone quiet down. She's going to lose it, because they noticed that I was rubbing my jaw. And that is the better SEL lesson in any freaking book, right? Is that your teacher is showing you, oh my God, my jaw. So then you have a circle. The check-in question becomes, what is your tell? Does anyone here play poker? What does a tell mean? Oh, a tell is when you show. So what is your tell around stress? I start to fidget. I leave whatever. So that is the crux. So I blow by this slide on purpose, because get your head out of this is some kind of certification you need, and just be an authentic human who does this next slide, which is begin really thinking about mindfulness. So like I said, I hated mindfulness. I had a bike crash, had a brain injury, and that really forced me to do it because it got rid of my symptoms, or managed my symptoms. But now that my brain is healed, I've come to know it's a superpower. So there's 3 ways to do mindfulness. One is formal. So it's like physical therapy for the brain. It's not meant to feel good. You sit down, you focus on your breath, in, out, a thought comes in, you gently, okay, I'll think about you later thought. I'm going to go back to my thinking. I'm going to go back and feel my breath over and over. That's it. You lose your way, your brain takes over and you start to think about crazy things and you just start over. And first you can do it for about 3 minutes before you're fed up. Next you can do it for 5. Next you can do it for 10. It's just like physical therapy. Over time, at one point I was meditating at this retreat for 8 hours a day. I couldn't believe it. So I could go on and on about how the impact on my brain, but it's rewiring your brain informally. If you go for a walk, so your professional responsibility is to take care of yourself. In the act of taking care of yourself, getting your nails done, having someone massage, going for a walk, just do that. So don't bring your phone or turn off your phone. Let the activities that you do for yourself be, you fully absorb into them. All right. And then mindful awareness is noticing your inner experience with non-judgmental curiosity. And this is the key to share with your students. I'm not saying, oh, I'm so stressed and my jaw is sore and I need to change it. I need to be nice now. I'm exaggerating to make a point. You want to be like, oh, well, I'm really starting to feel stressed. I wonder why that is. Oh, I think it's because there's 50 kids talking at the same time. So you're non-judgmental about it. Finally, about mindfulness. So I recommend getting an app. Insight Timer is the best. Insight Timer. And just try it. 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. Mindfulness is paying attention to the moment in front of you. It's allowing your experience to be what it is, non-judgmentally. It's developing the capacity for steady, grounded focus, even in a storm. Does that sound like your program? A storm sometimes? Yes. It does not necessarily feel good. And it leads to accessing self-regulation tools. So self-awareness and mindfulness allows you to access self-regulation tools before you're off the deep end, before you flipped your lid and said things you don't want to say to students or to your partner or whoever. Self-regulation, on the other hand, is specifically changing your feeling state. I don't like the way I feel, or it's not appropriate for this space. I need to change it. I use my tool. I change my way I'm feeling. It creates the capacity to access your thinking brain in times of stress. I got to meet 50 kids in 10 minutes. I better use my self-regulation tools, or I'm going to basically give them my stress, because that's your nervous system is what they're going to regulate off of. Sorry to give you that pressure, but that's why it's a professional responsibility. It should make you feel better. If not, try a different tool. All right. So self-regulation tools should make you feel better. If they don't, keep Googling. There's tons out there. Oh yeah. And mindfulness, it's not meant to clear your mind. So if you do and you're like, I'm not doing it right, my mind is still crazy. You're not special. You're a human being. It will, unless you're enlightened, you're always going to have crazy thoughts. So all it is seeing that crazy thought, going, oh, hello, crazy thought. I'm going to experience my breath now and go back to your breath. Finally, and we're going to go over this for about 8 minutes, is responding restorative. So you've done all this prep. You've given them the self-regulation tools. You've created a class or program structure that follows that slowing down structure, and you still have things that happen. All right. So these are some tools. And this is in your resource as well. The first is called Pair Up. It begins with a pause, 2 feet, 1 breath. And this is where you are that EMT, that first responder, where you go, am I myself regulated enough to attend to this situation? If not, I should find some help. So number 1, do no harm. Check in with yourself. Next, drop what you think you know. There's a big kid and a little kid. You come upon them, the little kid's crying. What do you think is happening? Your assumption is the big kid made the little kid cry. We don't know that. So the pause is where you drop what you think you know and stick with only what's observably true. So that's the acknowledge part. Hey, I notice you're in the hallway when there's a program. Or like I had kids, I noticed you're blocking the stairway and I can't get by. That happened to me. I'm not judging them, just saying, I'm trying to get a meeting and you're blocking the stairway right now. So in validating the valid. So you acknowledge what's true, and then you validate the valid, which means you have a really loud voice. Those are some amazing lungs. It's true. Like, that's true, but it's a strength. And it's kind of it kind of creates a dissonance, cognitive dissonance for them. They're like, what? It's hard to sit in a chair for an hour, or following rules is hard. That's acknowledging. You try to find something you can acknowledge about their experience. Being a teenager is hard. It is. They're supposed to be free. So that's that piece. And then you inquire, because during the acknowledge, they should now be looking into your eyes. If they're not, what do? We go back to regulate and go back to pause. So this is circular as well. So in the inquire, we're asking restorative questions. What's happening for you? What were you hoping for? And who do you think is being affected by you yelling so loud? And then if they start to get dysregulated again, go back to acknowledge. Look at my face. Am I angry? No, I'm just trying to get a solution here. We want to move forward. You're a good kid. I know you to be a good person, and this impacts others. So when people say this approach can be soft, I say no, because I'm always, let me confess that for years I stuck in pause and acknowledge, and then they regulated and did what I asked. And I just didn't want to get to the accountability because they might dysregulate again. What I'm telling you is, in the inquiry, you're saying, well, look at Mary's face. You threw that thing. What does her face look like right now? Oh, her face looks scared. Yeah, because that was scary to have that thing thrown. What do you think Mary needs right now to feel better? Because she looks scared. Oh, I could tell her I didn't mean it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Why don't you go do that? So the inquire is asking you to push it forward. If they start to get dysregulated and say, well, Mary's a jerk, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. You go back to acknowledge, hey, I've seen you guys play together. Right now you might think Mary's a jerk, but so you go back if they become dysregulated. But then in the end, you're saying, let's work together to restore this. What do we need to do to repair the situation? I believe in you. And that's the up part. The up part is, I've seen you do well. This is what I know about you. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to get this. Okay. And then a lot of elementary teachers like the 2 feet, 1 breath, 5 C's framework, which it's a little bit of different frame, same impact, connection. Hey, Mary, I'm noticing blank. I see you are struggling blank. I sometimes struggle too. Right? So it's making connection to what's happening. Then you're getting curious. But if a student is still dysregulated, again, you can't ask them questions until they're regulated. Same idea. What's going on for you today? What were you hoping for? What led up to this? What have you been thinking about since? And then compassion. If you ask enough questions, compassion should come. It shouldn't have to be forced, because you're going to get to the story behind the action. And then you express that. It must be hard to. Who else might this be hard for? So you're trying to elicit, you're expressing your own compassion, but you're also eliciting and trying to cultivate theirs, right? Hard to do with some kids. Collaboration. Want to work together to make this right? What do you think needs to happen? What can you or we do to avoid this next time? And then celebrate. That's the final C. And celebrate even the small gains. This is something annoys me, is kids who say the F word 10 times one day and then 5 times the next day. Do you want to celebrate that? Yesterday you said it 10 times, today 5. High five, man. We're going in the right direction. Because swearing is a habit. It's also often a nervous habit. It's a socially, so there's lots of things about swearing. If you go up to them and say, that's disrespectful, you could be like telling them that their grandma's disrespectful. Maybe grandma at home says F you. Be careful of the assumptions you make about that word respect. That's all I'm saying. Stick with what's acknowledged, observably true. You've said F you 5 times today. And that's a word that we've decided we're not going to use here. Let's work on it. Not, that's disrespectful. All right. It's all about you, people. I'm afraid to tell you. Like I said, your nervous system is the most important nervous system in the room. The more you work on that and forget about strategies as much, the better off you'll be. This is our culture's definition of a super teacher. You have a cape on, you have relationships with teachers, fellow teachers, administrators, leaders, family, and all the students. And you're a whiz. But when you're not there, when someone has to substitute for you in your program, it falls apart because all those kids are dependent on you. Restorative work says, I do not need to establish a deep, lasting, time-consuming personal relationship with every student. What I must do is to be totally and non-selectively present to each student, as he or she addresses me. The time interval may be brief, but the encounter is total. So number one, you are not looking at building relationship as this deep thing. You are creating the conditions in which students can connect with you and each other in a structured, boundaried way. That is going to prevent burnout. So when I say boundaried, I'm talking about the circle where the talking piece is past. We didn't have time in this work to go over it specifically, but that balance in the process represents a circle process. And this is where you end up. You end up with, yes, you have a cape on, but it's smaller. You have connections with each student, but what's more important and stronger is the connections that each student has with each other. So one outcome of the circle for me was I had a student with autism, Asperger's, and he was predictably socially challenged and nobody could connect with him. The circle allowed him to not only learn from the other students in a very non-threatening way, so he could listen to other students sharing appropriately. He could also share his brilliance because he knew so much, but in a constrained way. He had a time and he had a turn. And he loved the rules. And by the end of the year, they all loved this kid. They loved him because he was awesome. But if you just send kids out to pair share all the time or small groups, that student is not going to be able to navigate that. You need to create a structured way for kids to relate to each other. And that's the circle process. So thank you. The homework is to dig into that castle guide if you're in a position where you contribute to planning how to do the reentry. All right, you start a mindfulness practice as a professional responsibility. And when I mean it, I'm talking this one here that you'll have, because you'll have the slideshow, is awesome. It's 7 minutes, just counting breaths. And maybe find a partner to be accountable with. All right. So what I'd like for you to do in the next minute is to write in the chat some intention you can make. And I encourage you to make it really small. So what is something that you can, an intention you can make that's really likely to happen from what you've learned today? All right. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to write that in your chat. Oops, not 3 minutes. All right. Beautiful. That's so lovely. Thank you. Sometimes you need to be brave and courageous to pause things, especially when staff come together for precious time. Hey, can we just pause here and take a breath? Doesn't need to be heavy. Nice. All right. So the next thing is, what have you appreciated about our time together in terms of, we got 1 minute, I'm always to the last minute. Somebody already said thank you, but what did you learn about online learning? What's something you appreciated? Not knowing everything, winging it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, seeing uncertain there. Useful stuff. Great. Oh, being on this side, yeah. I was in a training last week. It was so nice. 5 techniques, great. Yeah, getting to talk with other people. Tools to use. Great. So I'm gonna thank you. Keep entering them. We're gonna save this chat. It's always lovely to read. I'm gonna end with this quote. I'm going to end with a quote and stop sharing. And I'd love people to just hang out long enough to just say goodbye to everybody, unmuting themselves. But we'll read this first. Imagine how our lives might be if everyone had even a bit more of the wisdom that comes from seeing clearly. Suppose people everywhere simultaneously stopped what they were doing and paid attention for only as long as it took to recognize their shared humanity. Surely the heartbreak of the world's pain, visible to all, would convert everyone to kindness. What a gift that would be. And that is the heart of restorative work. And I would love for everyone to unmute themselves and say goodbye and all the rest you want to say. All at once. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Exciting.
Hi from Vermont. Say hi to Mount Elder for me.
Everybody go take a hike.